Satnam. Today I'm going to recite for you Bota Karam Lakyana Chai, Japji 25. I love to explore sacred and mystical writings. This Sufism, Sikhism, Buddhism. A lot of people think Buddhism itself is a mystical experience. However, there are a lot of very rigid, traditional sort of, I don't mean rigid in a negative way, I just mean highly structured traditional components. And there are also a lot of sort of mystical components. So when I use the word mystic or even magician, what I mean are the people who, and there are a lot of mystical poets. I consider Walt Whitman to be a classic American, not that there is a classic, well, there is actually, because there are themes. I guess I mean classic by way of themes. But yes, I think of Walt Whitman as one of our special American mystics. Um, so what I mean when I speak about a mystic or a magician is usually someone who is describing a personal relationship with the divine, a personal relationship with God, or the beloved is often a word that is used. And the reason, I mean, the mystical language by its nature doesn't really explain itself. It's an ecstatic experience. It's extremely intimate, extremely personal, but the work that comes out of it can serve as, and often does serve as, really significant prayers and significant spells. All prayers are spells, and that's why it's interesting to play with prayers in the language that they were created in, and then also to explore what that means in the translation and sort of the understanding of where that mystical pulse is going. So so when I talk about a mystic, what I mean are the people who kind of orbit a tradition, and it is by way of that tradition, perhaps, that they find that very personal, mystical relatingness with the divine. Um, but they aren't necessarily strict adherents. So we think of Hafez, we think of Rumi, they have ecstatic poetry, right? And, and I think Rumi, if I recall, was, like a notorious partier, that sort of thing. So someone who isn't necessarily adhering to the traditionalist standards of the faith. And I do think that mystics can exist in any lineage. And what I mean by lineage really is any sort of organizational, institutionalized process. So that could be academia, that could be religion and faith, that can be any kind of structure. Okay? So, yes, I do think there can be mystical academics, as an example. And I think a lot of us have seen that in science and mathematics, especially. Okay? So, the mystic is the one who is cultivating that personal relationship with the divine. And a lot of times, what happens in mystical work is the divine takes on a little bit of the form of the human, in that the divine is described as being subject to the rules of the divine. So love is so infinite that even God cannot decide to not love or not be love, right? So that God itself or herself or himself or however is so supreme, even God cannot break God's rules. Okay? And then what happens is the human side of that relationship will often take on some of the creator qualities, meaning that the human, even though God cannot escape God, the human can imagine that they can, right? So God isn't breaking the rules of divine life, meaning just existence itself, the infinite totality of existence itself. It's a very, it's simple and it's not at all. The mystery of life is still contained within the realm of infinity, the infinite divine nature, right? Whereas a human can argue about what is and what is not, and we can break things down as much as we want and judge them and file them and categorize them, right? Say this is good, this is bad, this is how I feel about it. And so within infinity, we can move around in infinite ways. And that's part of what Japji 25 says that I'm going to recite for you. That inside of the infinite is possible. So it's infinitely within the infinite. And you hear people these days talking about, refraction and containing the sort of fractal, being a fractal of the infinite, right? So because we are in total experience, total existence, we are able to dive totally into something, right? So that's why someone can go into a completely dark place, because the infinite is everywhere. The infinite is everything. The infinite is infinite by being infinite within itself, correct? But I don't want to be too like cute about it. I don't want to be like, I don't want like whatever, right? But it is a kind of like folding within itself. And part of the power of mysticism and exploring mystical experience is that is an experience. It is an experience. And so that's why we so love, I think, the poetry of Rumi, Hafez, Whitman, others, including Guru Nanak and other sort of sacred writings, is that they trigger within us. They give to our any number of our bodies, because when you're reciting something in a language you don't speak and you don't understand immediately, what has to be translated to you is this kind of implicit thing. It's a communication with another level of your body. So be it your emotional bodies, it could be a historical lineage, it could be any number of things. But we use mystical work as a way of accessing mystical experience. And so in doing, isn't that interesting? Those who were orbiting and perhaps on the fringe of a tradition, or the mystic, the on the edge of the tradition, then when we start using their tools, becomes the center. And so we learn even a deeper way of experiencing mysticism, which is the replicating center, the movement of the center, the natural breath and the rhythm of the center. So then someone like Hafez, someone like Rumi, someone like our wandering minstrel Whitman, they were partiers. They weren't necessarily accepted by mainstream tradition or culture or anything. And yet, when we experience their work as our own awakening, as our own realization, then the role of their work becomes the center around which we orbit. And so that's how mystical experience sort of spreads itself and gives itself to intergenerational, right? People from all walks of life, people from all different cultures, all genders, all everything. That's how mysticism lends itself, which is really fascinating because, like I said, mysticism is an extremely intimate personal relationship with God. And I just use the word God because if whatever, and also because it bothers people. People have such a difficult time with the word God, and that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. But that's part of why I use it. It's the shortest word of all the descriptors. Yes. So I recorded a live of Bota Karam trying to work with the translation, but I think what I'm going to do is perhaps, we'll see how, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Okay. So if you're, there's an interesting relationship that I actually haven't explored that much, which is between Kundalini and Sikhism. There's a lot of Kundalini yoga that employs Japji, which I believe is a very foundational tool of Sikhism. I believe that those who are Sikh recite all 40 of the Japji every day. And so my recitations are very slow. I could not do all 40 in a day. I don't know if I would want to. I think there's just there's a reason for it, and I think the rationalization around it is that each of the prayers has its own sort of power in you. And so you want to be working with your limitations, or working through your limitations, working with abundance, working through your karma. So they all they're magical spells. Okay, so you want to get the whole package basically. But I also think that this is again another sort of like refracting thing, in that each prayer contains an entire universe of magic. So Japji 25. So I'm not going to go into the relationship between Kundalini and Sikhism because I'm not familiar with it, and I would be outside of my realm. That's something I can learn about more, and I'm sure I will. But I'm not going to, be presumptive enough to talk about the history of that. I would love to hear more about it from others, and I think it will come up a lot actually in the future, because I do think that Kundalini is taking on a stronger gravitational force on the planet. I think Kundalini is really growing fast and being understood for what it is. I think it's been kind of like we've kind of been doing it and not totally like feeling the power, but not totally getting what that's about or for. But yeah, so I think that Kundalini is sort of growing in it's accelerating, and I think with that, Sikhism will get a little bit more explanation as well, or a little more clarity as well. So Yogi Bhajan, who was kind of like he was the culmination of a few lineages, from what I understand. And I happen to think he's the culmination of a lot of lineages, bringing a lot of lineages together. He's, if you've had any sort of experience with what he shared with us, as well as even directly his teachings, you can feel that he's a magician on another level. It's unparalleled. It's like nothing I've ever seen. So Yogi Bhajan, you could say he's like the Kundalini guy. He's a Sikh. He's like all this, but I think he's a lot more than anything we could describe. And we are so blessed to have a being as he is, being able to share real technical strategies, actual things you can do to strengthen your aura, strengthen your mental bodies, your physical, like it is an all over strengthening tool, the things that he shared with us, in order that we can really be on this planet in a true way, in service, in a real way, in love, in intensity, and also in not being touchy or precious, or like, kind of reverent where reverence is not due. We're meant to be here, and we're meant to, as I keep coming back to this quote by Kurt Vonnegut. He's talking about the way he wants to spend his day, and he's like, we're designed to fart around. And so I do think that we are designed to accept, we are designed to experience and accept the humanity of what we are, and also to make it beautiful. and to understand the bridge of our power and our choice in really deeply creating a beautiful experience, a beautiful presence in the richest way, in the richest way, a full human. There are some teachers who will say, a lot of humans don't actually become human. They don't actually reach their humanness, meaning they don't come anywhere near their full potential. And so, at what point do you really become a human? When you are simply a part of the species? Is that human? Or is human a consciousness and a self-evolution? Okay. So Japji 25, Yogi Bhajan says, pre-fulfills all your needs, prosperity, virtue, estate, and wealth are yours without asking. And what you're going to see in mystical work is that there is a sense of timelessness. So what is it about? Having the individuated human experience and also having the capacity to cultivate within that timelessness. So you are in time bound, but the mystic has an ability to create a timelessness. And it's not even creation, it's becoming aware of the timelessness of the being. Yes? Ageless, timeless. So the human has that sort of, has the option to deal with time and space in a way that perhaps other incarnations don't. By virtue of our imagination, by virtue of our mystical direct experience. Yes? So, mysticism is not something described or explained. And yet it's also fun to sort of play in the words of the description. And to see, okay, so these are the words and phrases that I find. This is why some people have, they have their spontaneous mantras about things that really move them, because they feel in the recitation of that mantra a kind of folding of time and space, which is that mystical experience. The reversal of the relationship between God and the person. God is subject to God's laws, and the person has the option to be in or out or all over the place, right? And so that's the power of a mantra, but also of a recitation. So I do want to say that sonic recitation is more important than I ever knew. I had no idea. I used to only write my prayers. I used to only write my intentions. I used to write my mystical experience with God. But I am finding that there's a really immediate sort of like wormhole that recitation takes you to. So that's why you see people reciting and they go into that trance place, or dancing or singing. That you go into the trance in a way really rapidly with a recitation. It reverberates through all of your cells. You're speaking it and it hits all of your cells first. So it translates that to your cells and then can move out. So I don't understand. I'm sure there's science around it. I'm sure we have yet to really explore a lot around sonic. It's almost like sonic transportation. You can transport yourself mystically and magically with the words you say. And that's why, that's why people speak the spells, correct? Spells are spoken, and it is by that you make the path, make the doorway, make the portal. Okay. Japji 25. Pre-fulfills all your needs, prosperity, virtue, estate, and wealth are yours without asking, meaning before there's ever time. When you don't have to ask for something, it means that time has collapsed. It means that you're not even aware of your needs. And so have they been fulfilled, or have they always been fulfilled? right? And that's the fun thing about mysticism, is that language requires time. The use of words needs time. Like syntactically, grammatically, like the structure of words requires that I live in time in order to use it. But then if I'm in a mystical mode and I'm applying the time-bound structure of language, then I can really feel in myself the way that time sort of bends and folds, okay? So even by saying, are yours without asking? Then you say, well, what does that mean? Did I not need to ask? Or did I ask before? Right? Are yours without asking? The infinite pervading all moments. Completion, totality pervading all moments. And that's what Japji 25 really is abundance, total abundance, infinite abundance, pervading all moments. And what is the choice that the human can make in that? Perception. That every moment is infinitely abundant. Why? Because it's a moment where again, and only ever, right? Because in mysticism, it's always again, 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 and always total, 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 total. So even if it's repetitious, it's an entire thing within itself. So abundance contained completely. Why? Because abundance is a part of the infinity. The infinity itself is the abundance. Abundance so supreme, it can't even be called abundance. That's why it's before you asked, before you requested it. That's how total the abundance is. It can't even be called abundance because you can't even perceive that it is abundance because it's infinite, because it is the total experience, the infinite experience. Every moment is an infinite experience. Why? Because it serves as an opportunity for me or you or anyone to see the infinite. Every moment is infinite because it gives me a moment to perceive the infinite. Every moment is complete because it gives me, and that's the generosity of it. That's the abundance that we're talking about. That's the prosperity and wealth that we're talking about. Is because the moment gives me the opportunity to perceive the totality of the moment. So when I am in pain, I have the opportunity to see the totality of the moment. I'm weeping, I am grieving, I am in sorrow. I have the chance, the generous chance to perceive the moment as the totality that it is. That's the generosity of God. That's the generosity of existence, of life. If God to you is life, then life. The generosity of having been born, having been incarnated. So that I feel something beautiful. I feel satisfied in some way, pleasure in some way. It gives me the opportunity to see that moment in its entirety. That everything is complete in itself. Silence, sweetness, boredom, excitement. The power of the human, and I dare say the power of the next level human, the mystic or the magician, is the one who takes that and takes that and takes that and feels it. And this is life. And this is all of life. And this is all of life. This is all of life, yes? Yeah. Sorry, my phone is beeping. That's how total the abundance is. The abundance is so, I keep saying this because it's so fun to try to find a better way. There's always a better way of saying it, yes? The abundance is so supreme. And yet there is no higher or lower. It is so supreme that there is no hierarchy, right? So when I say supreme, what I mean is supreme, peerless. And what I'm peerless is like literally there is nothing else. So the abundance is so supreme that every moment offers that supremacy. Every moment offers its own entire life. And a life, and a life, and life, and life, and life some more. And in that, all of life is equal. And in that, all of generosity of that moment, not that moment, but that abundance is equal. And Japji 25, it discusses basically our capacity to bicker about that. To say, this is good, this is bad, I need something, I need from God, without recognizing that every moment that I am taking is eternity in itself, and that also is the infinite generosity of God. The great giver talks about the great giver. The great giver cannot hold back from us. The great giver, this is again the reversal of God and the human relationship. The great giver cannot resist us. Everything that is born is born. No seed is held back is in part of it. There's no seed that's held back. Why? Because every seed is a seed. The seed has been created. No seed can be withheld. No experience can be withheld. So when I am bickering, when I am in grief, when I am in sorrow, when I am in anger, none of that is held back from me. And so I'm saying God isn't giving to me, but it's really according to my rules. God isn't giving to me according to my rules. God is giving to me according to God's rules, which is supremacy, which is the totality of every moment, which is that there is nothing higher or lower about sorrow and happiness. They don't compete with each other. It's apples and oranges. This moment is an apple, this moment is an orange. And whether or not I prefer apples or oranges, it doesn't matter. Right? And so when I can see the truth in that, this moment is an apple, this moment is an orange, this moment is a banana, this moment's a pile of poop. When I can see that cleanly, then I'm the one who creates the cohesive experience. Isn't that interesting? When I'm not so disoriented, right? Think if I get an apple, I have an apple moment, and then I have an orange moment, and I get all kinds of confused, right? That's me not understanding how moments move, how the infinite lives inside of time. So we have the infinite, and then we have time, and then we have the infinite again inside of time, and there's time in there. Yes? All of that. My confusion also. It doesn't matter which direction. You can go this direction, you go this direction, you go this direction, you go that direction. All of it is the generosity of the divine, meaning a part of that infinite expression. So if I get really disoriented when I get an orange, say, and I get sort of preoccupied with figuring out the orangeness of myself, then I can go infinitely, infinitely, infinitely. Why? Because that is the gift of God. Infinity is the gift of God. You can go as far as you want in any direction. And that's the beauty of the will of the human. That we can think whatever we want. That too. That too. And that's a lot of the bota kanam. That also. That too. You can fight, you can become heroic, you can like strive, you can decide that you are, super smart and you're going to figure out everything. That too. You can think that you are in the desert, there's no God anywhere. That too is the gift of God. That's kind of this, that also, that also, that also, the gift of God. The gift of the divine, the gift of the infinite. That too. That too. That too. And so Guru Nanak says, it's a rare individual who can perceive that. And that is the person who becomes the magician. He says the King of Kings, but in my mind that's the magician. That's the mystic who becomes the bridge. Because it's the perception of infinity in a way that connects infinities. Yes? And then anything is possible. Really, anything is possible. So then from there you can blossom an infinity that is a deep, rich experience. A beautiful experience. Not always beautiful, but beautiful in that there's an awareness, there's a spacious awareness what is existence, what is experience. And so the divine numbers, I think I said this in my other video, divine numbers really start playing with each other. Yes, because we need to have the one, to have the two, to have the multiple, to have the one. And it really just is, where are you in the rhythm? At what point are you in time which is folding? And have you sort of flexed the muscle where you can feel more than one at once? Ah! I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So Japji 25. So this is, again, a recitation to trigger a mystical experience. It's also a recitation in order to inform your cells without the intellectual connection, to inform your cells of, to basically tune all your bodies, to tune all of your bodies to what we just talked about. That also, that also, that also. That also, that also. And so if you are reciting Japji 25 on a regular basis, what is going to happen? And what happens when you recite Japji 25 regularly, or even not regularly, a couple times every once in a while, or every day, or whatever, you do begin to see a little bit more of the spacious part of abundance. Yes? Meaning abundance everywhere. Meaning it's a softening in the heart of the recognition of the generosity of existence. The generosity of existence. And this isn't a flat way to say like making pain into a blessing. Because I think that we can sometimes be really violent with ourselves as far as like trying to wrench into place things that are very painful as under the role of being a blessing. You say, all this awful stuff happened to me when I was a kid, or I endured all this trauma, or I'm experiencing systemic whatever it is, institutionalized, problematic structures of whatever, you can have any degree of something that really, it generates power in the individual when there's a relationship built with it and a recognition of it. But I think a lot of times we try to skip the uncertainty, that gap, that space of going, this is painful, or it's wrong, or like I'm in pain about this, and so we take that thing and then we're like, it's a blessing, right? And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to our souls. I don't think that's fair to like the gentleness that's really within us, to the children that are really within us, to the tenderheartedness that's really within us, to the innocence that's in us, to the guilelessness that's in us. I don't think that's kind. And so what Bota does, I think, is that it sort of informs your cells in a way that isn't like forcing. It's not forcing you to be okay with things that are not okay, but what it does do is like it tunes your bodies and your perception to like there's a deep, soulful, profound way of experiencing the generosity of existence that Japji 25 gives. The generosity of things that seem neutral, the generosity of things that are mundane or overlooked. I find that's a huge change when I recite this often, is that things I would maybe not notice, I have deeper appreciation for. But also painful things I see in a more truthful way as being alchemizing. So things that maybe I would normally sort of struggle with become like I just have a space from it that allows me to see more of the alchemy of it without being violent with myself about making it into a good and okay thing. Not to mention the beautiful, easy to love things, right? That in some ways Japji 25 tempers those things. So I'm not as clingy with those things. I'm not as clingy with my pleasures and loves and joys. I'm not as hung up on them. But almost because I see them more truthfully, that it's like those aren't my sort of like islands of relief in the rest of life. They're just a part of that timelessness. They're a different crest of the wave. Yeah? My nose is running. Okay, so 40 minutes in, I haven't even recited it once. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I think this is probably a little bit not super traditional. I'm not traditional in any capacity. I will do the Kundalini invocation, and then I will recite the Japji 3 times, and then we'll be done. Okay? And build that portal. Build the portal. Guru Do you feel that? It's the building. We're building. We're saying, hey, Om Namo Guru then allow yourself to echo any mantra. So you recite a mantra, and there's enough of a pause, which I didn't take, but a pause in the silence where you hear it echoing in the space that it made. Okay? Om Namo. You can hear it in the Great Hall, yes? Guru Ad Gudename, Chugad Gudename, Sad Gudename, Siddhi Gurudev Name. Ad Gudename, Chugad Gudename, Sad Gudename, Siddhi Gurudev Name. Ad Gudename, Chugad Gudename, Sad Gudename, Siddhi Gurudev Name. Okay, so you can hear what is being built through the mantra. So the Adgurename is the white light. It builds the white light. And so what we did with the Om Namo, Ong Namo, okay? We're building basically the great hall of that which we are experiencing together. Om Namo. You can feel it as the walls in the structure of the great hall, and then Adgurename, Jugadgurename. It's almost like, and then this is what we're creating this protection around it. Okay, and so you're gonna hear people recite that quickly, and maybe that's part of how they're tuning. But I, from my own experience, really. Yeah, I like to let it sort of reverberate in myself. And so, I think when it's more habitual, it's quicker, it's easier, it's it's high, whatever. So yeah, so we have basically reached out to announce ourselves. We built that great hall, we built the portal, we built this building, the spaceship. Okay, I said it. We built the spaceship, okay? And then within that, we have our teaching. We have the cohesive teaching, and that's where we have a little bit of the more sort of delicate, nuanced, whatever, okay? So I've said it a million times. This is Japji 25. 6 will, or seek, depending how you say it, will recite all 40, I think, every day, and they will do it fast. It's amazing. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to listen to. It's so stunning. It's stunning. It's gorgeous. Pre fulfills all your needs outside of time. Prosperity, virtue, estate, and wealth are yours without asking. Before asking? Under asking? Over? Bota kanam lakiana chai, vada data tilnatamai, kete mange chorapaar, kete akanatanahi vichar, kete kaptute vekar, kete lele mukarpai, kete murka kai kai, kete aduk puk sadamar, epe data daridata. Bandagalasi bane hoi hora kenesake koi. Jeko kai ka kanapai, oho jane chite amukai. Ape jane ape te, ake se pe kei kei. Jisno bak se sifata sala, nanakapata shay patashaw. Boda kanam lagiana jai, vada data tilnatamai. Kete mange jora paar, kete aganatanahi vichar. Kete kaptute vekar, kete lele mukarpai, Kete murka kai kai, kete aduk puk sadamar, epeta tataridatar. Bandagalasi bane hoi hora kensake koi. Jeko kai ka kanapai, ochane jete ai muikai. Ape jane apete, ake sebe keike. Jisano bagase sifata sala. Nanaka pata shai pata shao. Bohota karam lagia na jai, vata tata tilnatamai. Kete mange jorapa ar, kete akanata nahi vichar. Kete kaptu te vekar, kete lele mukarpai, kete murka kai kai. Kete aduk puk sadamar, epeta tatari tatar. Bandagalasi bane hoi hora kinesake koi. Jeko kai ka kanapai, ochane chete ai muikai. Ape jane apete, ake sebe keike. Jisano bagase sifata sala. Nanaka pata shai pata shao. No matter how mixed up we can get, no matter how disoriented we can get, there is in everything infinite rest. There is nothing to be run from. There is nothing to fix. There is nothing to resolve, even though everything changes, even though everything resolves or falls apart, even though things come together and come apart, even though everything moves, even though our emotions change, no matter what it is, in everything, in every moment, in every cell, in every experience, there is a point of eternal rest. There is the eternal. In all things, the eternal lives. In all things. That's why, as they say, gosh, where did the quote come from? Our moods don't believe in each other. Why is that? What? Or is it emotions? Our emotions don't believe in each other. Why? Because everything is eternal. May you see the blessing in all things. May you see eternal life in all things. Everywhere you turn, may you feel that which is eternal.